All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get things going here. Hello and welcome to everyone. I have started the record. Yes, okay, great. Hello, my name is Elizabeth Benson, and I am the current president of the Alabama chapter of the Voice Foundation. I want to welcome you to our chapter meeting here today. I'd like to introduce the current members of our leadership team. We have Edie Hapner as our past president. Valerie Aceta is our president-elect. Valerie's with us today. And Molly Adams, our membership director, is also here. Laveda Harrison is our secretary-treasurer. And Chloe McWhorter is our social media director. Chloe's here in the room as well. So thank you so much to our fabulous leadership team. As always, our programming is a group effort, and it takes all of our resources combined to bring you the wonderful quarterly programming that we do each year, or yeah, all year long. Please save the date. I just have a couple housekeeping things at the beginning here. Save the date for our next meeting, which is going to be Sunday, April 27th. And that's our World Voice Day Cabaret. This is going to be, I believe, the 5th year we're doing this, or maybe 4th. It seems like 5, even if it's only 4. But that's because it's such a joy to get to see everyone. This is where everyone submits videos from the little ones who are in voice studios just learning all the way up through professional level videos of performances in all styles and genres, and it's really exciting to see the talent from Alabama. So I encourage you to join us for that. It's going to be a group watch of a wonderful compilation of talent. Today, we're very excited to bring you the Quiet Knowing Alexander Technique, exploring Alexander Technique ideas and application in the studio. And we have our presenter today is Dr. Kathryn Hedlund, and she serves as professor of music, chair of graduate studies, and director of vocal studies at the University of Mobile. So she is one of our Alabama treasures. And you can see the all rest of her bio here. She is going to bring us an interactive lecture demo today. She's going to share with us some information about the Alexander Technique, and we are going to have the opportunity to get up on our feet and try some things as well. You are welcome to keep your video visible or hide your video as you are comfortable. If your video is visible, we may take some screenshots, so just be aware of that as we go through. For those who are not able to join us here live, this video will be posted to our YouTube following this meeting, and that link will be shared through our membership emails and on social media as well. So Dr. Hedlund would like to have folks ask questions as we go. So I'd like to ask that if you have a question as we go, please enter it into the chat, and I'll be monitoring that chat and interrupting and interjecting at the appropriate times so that we can address your questions in a timely fashion. You're also welcome to, if you prefer, leave your questions for the end, and we will hopefully have a little bit of time at the end of our allotment here to go through those questions. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Hedlund. Welcome.
Thank you. All right, let me go ahead and remember how to share my screen. I already forgot. Nope, that's not what I want. All right, hang on. I'm calling in some assistants to make sure that I'm sharing my screen correctly. So while we're waiting, Alexander Technique. So how I came to the technique, let me just share a little bit. Actually, no, I'm gonna wait. Hang on. Sorry. I'm gonna wait till I have my presentation with me. Sorry for the delay, you all. Nope.
Thanks for your patience, folks, as we work this out. We've got multiple screens and lots of technology going, and so that you can hopefully see and experience everything to the best degree possible. So thank you for bearing with us.
Can you all still see me?
Yes, I can see you here on the actual screen. The slides profile, it says the video has not started.
Okay, it's asking me to start my video. That's a new one.
Yeah, just don't join your audio.
Yeah, well, it's not giving me the option. Oh, it's not giving me the option to share the screen. Okay. Okay.
There you go.
All right, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Fabulous.
All right, can you see my slides?
Yes, everything looks as we intended. Thank you. Thank you, everyone in the room. Thank you.
The most challenging part of presenting, right? Okay, so here we go. Alexander Technique, a little bit about me and the AT before we kind of delve into what it is. I'm a training member of Alexander Technique International, so I am not fully certified just yet. I always put that out as kind of a preemptive. I'm not fully trained. I've done lots of workshops. I've put in a lot of hours, and I have had lots of great conversations with other women who are in a similar spot in life of I will train, I will make it a priority. Alexander Technique is something that I was introduced to in graduate school at Louisiana State University. My professor, Patricia O'Neill, was the catalyst for my journey with this. And it really just shifted how I look at everything. And it really has changed not just how I perform and how I teach, but how I live. So favorite mentors, Patricia O'Neill, Debbie Adams, who's at Boston Conservatory, and Michael Frederick, who is an independent AT teacher. I think we're good. We're good. Thank you. Sorry. So the quiet knowing is something that I have stuck with over the years. How I think about it is a confidence and a trust in the body that evolves from the inside out. So my mentor calls it singing with yourself instead of in spite of yourself. It's a quiet confidence. It doesn't require outside affirmation. It gives the student the gift of knowing and recognizing the process from within, respecting the body and respecting the body's true knowledge. And when we teach from there, there's also just a beautiful respect between singer to singer, two singers in the room, working together. And then I throw in it works well for the INFJs. Who's an INFJ? A lot of performers. This was just a funny little throwback, but this popped up today. And I was like, I messaged her and said, hey, I'm giving a presentation. This is a former student. And so this is something that I've used for many years, something that I've stuck with. So I want to read you a little bit from a beautiful new book that was given to me by one of my students. Alexander Technique Arising from Quiet by Alexander Farkas. It's a beautiful, beautiful book, highly recommend. So looking at these quotes, these are just kind of little teasers, but no one ever told me I was trying too hard. Through years of piano lessons with numerous teachers, no one ever suggested that I might be exerting too much effort and jamming the pathways of energy. I'm sure we can all relate to that. I know I certainly can. And often just in music education in general, we're just told practice, 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 you'll get better. You just have to put your head down and get better. And sometimes the explanation is not conducive to using your body well. And then just ideas of practice and hard work delude us into thinking that if we dominate any situation with sufficient force, we'll achieve our desired result. And then often this leads to tightened muscles. And what it really means is that we're stopping movement in order that we not go wrong. Stopping movement in order that we not go wrong. So my question for you all, and something that hopefully we can work on answering a bit in the next hour is, how do we work against this? How do we work against kind of what is set up for us essentially in education of people are trying to do something and they want to try with force, and there is force, but how do we release it? So I'm sure all of you voice professionals have heard of the Alexander technique. My favorite question is like, is it just for chill people? And I joke around about this because most people who come to Alexander technique are type A, type A, not chill people. So, and the Alexander technique has helped me chill out. It does help me chill out, but it's not really chill. A lot of the AT community is involved with Tai Chi. That's why I throw that in. Tai Chi, Qigong, all of those things. A lot of AT people kind of double dip. Is it a bunch of hippie stuff for hippies? So here are some of my favorite definitions. So you can read through those if you can see the slide well. Trusting our amazing design, a way to move with more ease by cooperating with your design. One of the most wonderful things about Alexander technique for me has been creating space between a stimulus and a response. And I'll talk more about that, but it's a really wonderful gift for performers to be able to have a pause and be able to create from that pause. It makes for some really special things. And then just recognizing that you have a choice in your response to a stimulus. So history, this is not the interesting stuff, so I'll kind of speed through. But F.M. Alexander himself was born in 1894. He was an actor. And through self-examination, he was having a lot of trouble with his voice, having a lot of trouble losing his voice, and he watched himself in a mirror and figured a bunch of stuff out and then taught to others. A lot of his teaching, he used his hands and used hands to communicate from nervous system to nervous system, which is how a lot of his legacy has been carried on as well. But you can also teach Alexander technique with just words. You don't have to use your hands. He died in 1955. There are still a fair amount of teachers out there that studied with him or someone who studied with him. So we have a nice legacy. Most big music conservatories have an Alexander technique teacher. And then we have lots of wonderful AT training programs. Boston Conservatory has a program that is associated with their school, a wonderful training program that I have done some work with Debbie Adams. You can have online opportunities. There are opportunities through multiple training programs where you can go a weekend a month and train that way. Lots of great AT podcasts. The corporate world has kind of joined in, maybe a little bit, just working with people on anyone that has repetitive motions. And then who uses it. So again, I don't have to read all of these things, but some really interesting things are the equestrian community. So people who ride horses and they communicate with the horses and learn from the horses and how the horses use their bodies. So there's a big AT kind of special community there. People with chronic pain. So learning how to use your body well around your chronic pain instead of trying to batten down against it. Anxiety, PTSD, dentists, anyone who's in a compromised position, and then dentists especially, people are feeling anxiety and they're in people's faces all the time and anxious people's faces. So there's actually a very high suicide rate among dentists, which is kind of a terrible fun fact. And then these are my observations, but I'm pretty sure Bono, Chris Martin, and Cynthia Erivo all have studied Alexander technique. Pretty sure. I have no proof. Except up here. How I use it, how I teach is just completely, how I teach voice is completely intertwined with Alexander technique. It's hard for me to not use it when I'm teaching voice. It's just ingrained. And I think there's so much, there are so many changes that can happen all at once with a very small AT idea or indirect idea. It allows me to be more open and allows me to connect with people more easily. It helps me navigate anxiety, although sometimes it makes me more aware of my anxiety, which is sometimes a challenge. and then developing awareness just of a situation at large, knowing when to react and when not to react, or choosing not to react. And then finally, and maybe most importantly, trusting that our bodies are the vessel for the story, and it's not about us. And AT has helped get out of the way. So, so the 7 operational ideas, and you'll see different ideas about the 7 operational ideas, but this comes from Michael Gelb's book, which is a great intro. So use and functioning. So we think of this, and these are my little like catchphrases for it. So use and functioning is noticing how you're using your body instead of, so self-responsibility versus a quick fix. My back is sore, what can I change? Versus I'm gonna take an Advil, which I'm not trashing Advil, God bless it, but there's a certain self-responsibility that is required if you want to make a habitual change. The whole person, tensegrity. So I have a little toy that I use in the studio all the time. But when one thing changes, another thing changes. And so I don't know how well you can see this on the screen, maybe if I put it over here, but it shows us that with one tiny change, everything changes. And so we think of ourselves, obviously singers have to think of themselves as a whole person, and tensegrity is a combination of tension and integrity. And it comes from the architectural, so a word stolen from the architectural world. And then primary control, and this is maybe the thing that I don't know, I use all of them. Really what is very central to the Alexander technique is understanding that the head neck joint is where everything falls into alignment. And so if the head neck joint is compromised whatsoever, then other things will fall out of alignment. So AT works a lot with this head neck joint and lots of various indirect or direct ways. Unreliable sensory perception is new territory is scary. So especially for singers, you've been singing your whole life, you get a student in front of you and they've been singing their whole lives. No one actually teaches anyone how to sing, right? Everyone knows how to sing. And so unreliable sensory perception is, I will have a student in front of me and they'll be like, oh, that felt great. And I think we could help it feel better. But we just get used to how things feel and say, well, this is how it feels when I'm singing, until we're able to guide the student into a new experience that then gives them a different way to feel singing. So sometimes our senses are a little off because of our habitual actions. Inhibition, I have this as I have 2 kids. I don't have to pick up that sock. There are always socks all over in my house. And so inhibition is my pause. I don't have to pick up that sock, and I keep walking. So finding intent in the pause, my intent is to not pick up the sock. In singing or in performance, we find our intent in that pause, in that stillness. The stillness is not a relaxation. It's not a place of no energy. It's a place of neutrality. But if I'm on to the next thing and my head neck joint is compromised, I can't allow or create from a place of complete neutrality. And that's what we're looking for. Direction happens after the inhibition. So direction, I say this all the time, the thought is the action. So I don't think, allow more space and then make more space. We think a thought is an action, allow more space. Oh, my body knows how to do that. So changing our focus and awareness, or just that innate trust that allowing my body to find the way versus my brain to tell probably the wrong muscles to make the way. And then ends and mean, process over product. So ends and means is thinking about the product, singing to, one of my colleagues calls it singing to a sound, versus being in your process and not paying attention to what comes out. And we hear that all the time as singers, right? Don't listen to yourselves, don't focus on how you want to sound, because how it sounds is different in your head anyways. So this this idea really helps singers, teaching from this place helps singers to find a process and stay in that process versus being distracted by the result.
Dr. Hedlund, before we go on, can you hold up that tensegrity tool one more time? I'm just going to add a spotlight. Hold it up in front of your laptop video. Yeah, closer to your body because now it's too close for us to see. Thank you. Thank you. Right there. Perfect.
Yeah, you can get them on Amazon. It's called a tensegrity mast. It's a beautiful, beautiful image for breathing. I use it all the time as a tool for students. Sometimes I have them hold it and sing and slowly release, or vice versa, while they're exhaling, pulling it out, creating a little bit of tension outward, depending on what feels better to them. So yeah, it's a great little toy.
Thank you.
Okay. This has how much the head weighs when it's off of the spine. So your head is heavier when you're not using it well, is the idea there. Okay. I think about this often, and I think about it with teachers with a classroom of kids in front of you, just paying attention to yourself. And we joke around about this in the AT community that when I'm giving an Alexander technique lesson, all I'm doing is focusing on myself. And if you have hands on a student, ideally you have to be focusing on yourself so that you don't place hands on a student and show them tension that is not necessary through your nervous system. And so I have paid attention to this a lot in classroom teaching and in applied teaching, that I want to be in myself in a way that allows me to receive fully, and allow the student to also be receiving fully. And so that starts with me, ideally. Joyful curiosity, having the utmost respect for the student and the instrument and the body in front of you, and teaching from a place of no fear of being wrong. And I think that's the thing I hear the most, maybe in pedagogy classes, is what if I tell somebody something wrong? And it's a tough place to teach from. It's a tough, so I encourage people, and I will say things sometimes and be like, was that correct? And so I think it's just a beautiful place to teach from, and a beautiful place to show students that no one person knows all of the answers, right? And ultimately the student knows the answers. Okay, primary control is our head-neck relationship. And so we have that, if you want to find it on yourself. I've seen it mapped a couple different places, actually. So I like to map it right under my earlobes, and then kind of push my head around. Oh, close up, take a step back. So mapping it kind of right under your earlobes and imagining that that's where the action starts from. I also sometimes, just for students or for singers, I kind of like to map it a little higher. And I don't know if that maybe is like head voice resonance. It also kind of cups the ear a little differently for singers, but I use this very, very often, especially in singing. And you can really tell if you think of something that really scares you, you may be able to feel some compression at your head neck joint. So if you, I don't know, whatever scares you, lots of different things, you may be able to feel yourself tense those muscles in the back. And that's what we don't want when we're singing. Obviously that changes the shape of the resonance tract. We'll play around with this a little bit. I teach at a Christian school, and we talk about this as stiff-necked. In the Bible, people are referred to as stiff-necked if they're not being obedient to God. And so I often pull out that reference and say, let's not be stiff-necked, right? Okay, this is just really beautiful. Oh, let's see, are we gonna be able to do it? Do I wanna do it? You know what, I'm gonna skip it. Am I gonna be able to share this presentation, Elizabeth?
It depends on how you shared initially. Did you click the box to say optimize for video, like as you were sharing?
It'll be fine, I'm just scared.
Yeah, well, let's see.
all day. All right, how do I get back out of here? This is what I was worried about. Let's see. Okay. Oh, it was fine. I am gonna skip the second one. But so when we watch that cheetah, we can learn so much from animals. We can learn so much from babies and their use and their free head neck. So we think about the head leading, the head leads, the body follows. That's one beautiful thing that that cheetah was doing, is it was surely going to kill something. Also just a beautiful lengthened spine. And then allowing the backs of the knees to lead as well. So we'll get into a few things, but if you're ever curious about how to move, watch a cheetah. Okay, head balance is on top of the spine. I love to address the S curve of the spine and have singers remember, especially college age students, that you're supposed to have a curve that goes out, and so your belly is actually supposed to go out, and it's okay. So that S curve of the spine, the joint nestled behind the earlobe. So again, that little head neck place that you can find. The head goes forward and up. I'll show you a picture of that. But first, I'm going to show you this beautiful vocal tract picture by one of my fabulous recent graduates. She has an Etsy shop and she does multiple different ones of these, but this is her vocal tract. So again, where you look at where the spine is and where the vocal tract is, you can imagine that compression has a very big effect on the shape of the vocal tract. Head going forward and up. So this is an Alexander technique concept that gets confused often. So my head going forward and up is not this. My head going forward and up is this. So going forward and up from the head neck joint. So I'll demonstrate that again. My head is not going forward and up. My head is going forward and up so that the crown is the highest part of the head. And there's always mobility in this. It's not a held place, but you can sense when you kind of play around with that position in your own body that if I am reaching at all, I have tightened muscles in the back of my neck that are not going to contribute to my resonance tract space being optimal. So you can see this beautiful, babies are also wonderful learners, and they don't have that much hair, so you can really see the position. But this is my daughter when she was little, and you can just see the beautiful forward and up. And babies also, when they get interested in something, they usually have a spine lengthen before they go get it, versus later on in life where you just say, I want it now, and you compress everything. So usually babies, when they're left to their own devices and haven't started imitating poor alignment, have beautiful head neck relationship. Okay, how alignment affects the voice user. So I'm gonna skip over this because I have a few different things for us to try. So this is a really important one to me. It's a kind of a highlight one, that good posture is not a place, it's a climate. It's a continually found thing. You can't find it and hold on to it, unfortunately. So you can't just say, oh, now I know how to have good alignment and I'll always have it. Or, oh, I found the place for that high note and I'm gonna hang on to it. And then the second you hang on to it, is gone. So balance requires constant movement. I do have a little tool for this that I'll show you all in a little bit, but just encouraging your singers, and it doesn't, we don't have to be going all crazy, but I really encourage movement in my singers practicing and just remembering that we can't ever find it and hold it. I even will be as obnoxious to say a note of duration instead of a held note, because I don't like to say hold. And then in a state of fear, our stature shortens. So remember how we were doing this and thinking about something scary, and our stature shortens. There is a reason for that, evolutionary reason, because that cheetah is probably about to go attack somebody on the back of the neck. And when we get scared, we just immediately shorten our stature. So I also like to remind people that a cheetah is not chasing you when you're singing, especially in a voice lesson. No cheetahs. Okay, so let's play around with, and this is, I think, Elizabeth, we could probably make the slide small on this, and I'll just kind of talk through some of this and let you all let you all try it.
Can you stop the share? I think that will fix the spotlight for everybody.
Yeah, this will keep me, I've got to keep my PowerPoint open to keep myself on task.
Okay, so now we're getting the view of you from far away and up close. So that's actually fabulous.
Oh God. I'm glad you all are enjoying it. So pelvis under palate, this is a beautiful idea that I took from an Alexander Technique workshop, I think 2016. And that was one where I was like, oh yes. So if you stand up and you just play a moment with that, and you think, where's my palate, my hard palate, my soft palate, and then is my pelvis cupped under it? Is my pelvis in front of it? Is my pelvis behind it? Or is it cupped in front of it? And you'll notice, I notice, and I talk to singers about this all the time, that when my pelvic position is compromised, my abs don't do what they're supposed to when I'm inhaling. So if my pelvis is not under my palate or not in the center of my body, then my abs will not be behaving appropriately when I inhale. So you can kind of play with that as well. And pelvises are, people just, either they don't want to think about it, or they're trying to be cool, or I don't know what, but people don't know where to put their pelvises. And me, especially after having kids, I was like, where does this thing go? I don't know. So it's a really interesting thing to play with. And I think it's an interesting thing to play with just at different times in life when, oops, I got there. Different times in life when your body changes. So, and then finding center, but not holding on to it. And then we have the energy in the spine being able to go from bottom to top. And we have included our pelvis in our torso, which singers are sometimes want to not do. And I can't do anything. This has happened before. Sorry, y'all. So now my PowerPoint is frozen because I confused it. Does anybody have questions while I'm trying to figure out how to get my PowerPoint to move?
There are no questions currently in the chat, but if anyone would like to unmute and ask a question, I invite you to do so.
Yeah, this has happened before, where if I come out of a screen share, then my PowerPoint freezes. And I can't do anything else.
So question in the chat, what is the name of the toy, the tensegrity tool that you showed earlier?
It is called a tensegrity mast. Tensegrity and then mast, M-A-S-T. Okay. So my PowerPoint seems to be frozen because I stopped sharing, and I'm wondering how I can make it do anything. So now she just has me up there, but my PowerPoint is, oh, okay, you just did magic on it. Great, thanks, Mason. Yay, Mason. Thank you. Okay, another thing to try. So this one you can try standing or sitting. Latissimus dorsi muscles. I love this muscle, so cool. So you imagine that you're wearing a cape, and then you lift your arms as if your whole arms are a cape. And so we talk about our motion beginning in the back. A lot of times we think I'm gonna lift from my shoulder because that's what I see going, but that our motion starts in the back, and the latissimus dorsi is this beautiful, beautiful supporter of the scapulae, and it just, you can spread your wings. Yeah, and there's a sense of lightness. I use this when I talk to pianists about Alexander Technique, of course, but singers, I mean, how often do we put our arms out? So just
holding a choir book too.
Holding a choir book, yes, for sure. So that, like, holding something for a very long time, imagining that your arms come from your back and your elbows gently move away from the torso. Some lovely ideas to try. Oh, I think I meant to take this out. I have too many things. Let me pause. So AT and breathing.
Dr.
So,
Hedlund, are you meaning for us to see the slides right now that you're talking through?
oh no,
They haven't come up for us.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Okay, so in the AT community, breathing is I mean, if there's one subject that singers all have a different viewpoint on, it's breathing. And if there's one subject that I have evolved my teaching around and my teaching language, it's breathing. And the AT community a lot of people in the AT community say there's no difference, you just breathe. And I'm somewhere in between. I do think that we do things a little bit different. But one beautiful idea that you can try, and again, you can try standing or sitting, however that you're comfortable, is that the spine gathers on the inhale and then lengthens on the exhale. So, and it's not a do, it's not a I have to do that. Gather, lengthen. No, it's a cooperate with or notice or allow, right? And so the spine gathers on the inhale and lengthens on the exhale. Often singers will try to compress the spine on the exhale. We have something in the AT community that we call the whispered ah exercise. This is obnoxious. Do you have the close up on my face still, Elizabeth? I can't see it.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. Oh, now I can see that, so I have to turn around. I'm in a room with 4 screens, including my computer. So, okay. So in a whispered ah, we have an inhale, and then we want to find a joyful resonance tract space, like a little bit of a smile. And then, I don't know if you can hear that, probably not quite in the room. It's a neutral laryngeal whispered ah. If I'm doing it with a high laryngeal position, which is not desired, right? We don't want that, we want. So I think helping singers find freedom and space when they're not actually phonating, but in the whisper, and this is something that I learned that the acoustic vocal ped community uses a good bit too, is noticing the overtones in our whispers and noticing the resonance tract space and how our body forms it without sound. So if you want to try that a few times, whispered ah, I'll also use it in the studio as a sigh before a vocalise. So ah, and just putting little sighs before each one. So letting the student notice what might I be doing when I'm sighing or whispering versus singing that I may not need to do. Let's see. Okay, can you all, I can't bring my skeleton up high because he will fall apart. Creepy. Okay, so if we look at the jaw, this is probably something that I use. I don't know if this is coming across on the Zoom. I'm trying to find a good angle for it. Okay, so if you look at how the jaw hinges, we think of the jaw as an appendage, and then I will often just come refer to my skeleton in lessons, helping singers trust that the jaw releases back instead of down. So we hear the phrase drop the jaw or make space, and this just reminds us that there is a back motion to the jaw. Knowing where it hinges is also important. So you can put the finger in front of the ear and then notice the down and back motion and the hinge twist. Okay. Another fun exercise. If you stand up, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this on the skeleton or not. Let's just try this. Just gonna go, nope. Don't try it. Put it back. Oh no. Okay, we're good. Okay, so if you all can see the heel bone, so if you stand up, try standing for me. And thinking about when you're standing, you can remember that pelvis under palate idea. And then you can also, Kyle, can you go that way just a little bit, other way?
Wait, which way?
Other way.
Just keep going.
Just
this
keep going.
way.
Okay.
Just keep going. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so you notice how the heel goes behind the leg bones here. So when you're standing, you want to notice that the heel is going behind your body. So that idea for singers has been a really lovely alignment thing to just know, hey, I can find what we call it finding our heels, but finding the heels and knowing that you can have that. We hear a lot when people first try AT, they say, I feel like I'm falling backwards, because most of the time people are leaned forward, especially when they're singing, and they're like, I gotta tell you something, versus let me invite you to hear something. Okay, another idea, stay standing for me. Another idea, if you're standing, include your back. So the lungs take up space. I use this idea all the time, but the lungs take up space in the back too. So things moving out of the way to allow the diaphragm to contract. We want that 360 idea. So sometimes I'll come and just put a hand on someone's back, or I'll put a hand on the scapulae or the latissimus dorsi muscles, and just help people remember that there's that 360 expansion in the back. Let's see. Okay, here's another idea in the studio is soft eyes. So
Preach.
so if I have soft eyes, I'm thinking about receiving the image and processing it in the back of my head instead of going to the image. Or, you know, when you're like having trouble seeing something, like you're like, well, what's that? Or singers often will, when the neck is compressed, the eyes get a little crazy. Nothing wrong with crazy eyes. Sometimes we need those too. But soft eyes, we're just receiving the image and processing, just knowing that the image is processed in the back. And that is an idea that usually helps the head balance on top of the spine. It's a nice idea that I can think about either before I'm singing, while I'm singing. Sometimes I'll just think about what's behind me, thinking about the space behind me. That will help my eyes stay soft. Let's see. Direction with touch. So a little bit about AT and AT teachers and hands-on. So we think about touch as a nervous system kind of talking to or communicating with a nervous system. But singers can do that on themselves as well. And I often encourage that because why not? I'm not going to be hanging out with you when you're practicing most of the time. So having singers put hands on somewhere, even if we're looking for, instead of asking a singer, can I have more forward resonance? What if we just put a hand on where we would like to feel a few more vibrations? And so students can find that sensation indirectly instead of muscling it by just noting where we would like it to feel from. So if you want to play with that for a moment and make some noises. So if I go, ah, that feels a little stuck. Ah, ah, and then I'm allowing the vibrations want to follow where the touch is. So I wish I could hear you all. I'm sure it's beautiful. Primal cues. And so you probably, I'm sure you use this in your teaching. I think pretty much everybody does. You all can sit if you want to. So a sob, a cry, a whine, a whimper. We know that the body knows how to communicate, and we can trust that the body will make the resonance track shape that you're trying for, or that you're not trying for, that you're doing. And so again, we go back to the thought as the action. We talk about a sob, a cry. So sometimes we think about sob in Western classical singing, and we think about whine in CCM or MT styles, or a whimper. Let's see. Okay, can we, Elizabeth, can we bump back to you all seeing let's see. I have a couple of pictures that I'd like to show you all, so I'm gonna go back to sharing if I can find how.
Is there, the green button is not there at the bottom?
I think I have to, let's see. I'm coming out of this. No, yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, back. Okay, can you all see PowerPoint?
Yes.
There it is. Great. Pull up a few little pictures for you all to see.
If you put it in play mode, it will just be a little bit bigger on our screens whenever you get to the slide you want. Thank you. Perfect.
Okay, so I don't know if you all have seen a balance disc before. It's a beautiful, wonderful teaching tool, balance disc. So tensegrity mast, balance disc. It's like a little exercise thing. There's also Bosu balls, but I tend to prefer the balance disc, but we'll have singers stand on them. And it shows us various things. If I lock my knees or try to have any rigidity in my posture, I'll fall down. So it forces me to unlock my knees. It engages in a way that I think is helpful for appoggio without necessarily talking about appoggio. It gets people into their pelvis a little bit. And I think most importantly, again, going back to the rigidity idea, you can't be rigid on this. And so I'll have singers sing on this. It just reinforces that idea that balance is found through movement and that we can't find a place and hold it no matter how wonderful that place feels. And then you also may notice when you're breathing on this thing that you may be holding more on the inhale or holding more on the exhale. And so it's a really lovely informative thing. This we talk about in walking. And so I might have you all try walking here. Let's see, we got. So spirals, nature does not have straight lines. Everything is beautifully curved. We just had crazy snow in Mobile, and you look at the snowflakes and there aren't straight lines. Everything is beautifully curvy. And so allowing the body to sense that spiraling all the time with the breath, there are all kinds of images that can stem from this. But when you're walking, we want the torso to spiral from the sacrum. And so I want to try to actually, let me hold on the walking part because we're going to stand and sit first. Eye of the Hurricane is just another beautiful image of just understanding if you've ever been in a hurricane. There's that really creepy part where like everything is still. And so it counters to me, oh, you just have to be relaxed when you sing. Well, that's not really it at all. I don't feel relaxed when I'm singing. That's not a relaxing activity. So we're not making energy, but we're allowing the energy to come out of us from a place of neutrality, a place of great strength, but a place of neutrality. And then there's another wonderful teaching tool and something to use with yourself. Isn't that interesting? So we talk about observation without judgment. So singers at a lesson, you get a voice crack, you get a noise that is not desired or whatever, or that's not really what we're going for. And you just say, huh, isn't that interesting? And if you just say that to yourself right now, isn't that interesting? You may notice that your voice is pretty resonant, that your head neck joint is pretty free, and you're just like, And I really, really wish that I would have had that tool practicing in my years, where you're just like, yeah, that was terrible. But that is not a conducive way to learning. And so giving yourself a choice in the reactions to the stimulus of your own self. If you're familiar with Dr. Trinice Robinson Martin's work, she does gospel vocal pedagogy. She has some really beautiful ideas. A lot of her ideas to me line up with AT ideas, and many communities I can make lots of connections. But a belief is a muscular pattern, and emotion is a muscular pattern. So every emotion has a shape of the resonance tract. And when you are practicing an AT mindset of inhibition and direction and focusing on process over result, I don't want to sound sad. I want to create from sad. I want to create from a space of sad, and I want to keep cultivating that until it changes. Let's see. This is a really wonderful one as well that you can try from wherever you are, but you can kind of slowly broaden the space around you. I think a lot over the years, often you're taught to like, just imagine you're by yourself, or imagine that there's nobody in the room, or just put a little shield around yourself. And I think I've found it more useful to just broaden the space I'm in, even if maybe I'm not including the people in it. Broadening your kinesphere, so just within your imagination, taking slow steps to say, I'm in the room, I'm in the building, I'm on the campus of University of Mobile, I'm in the world, et cetera, and you can kind of slowly broaden and notice how your spine may continue to lengthen, and you may continue to take up space, and your eyes will likely remain soft, which is what we want to do, tap into our bigness. This is a really great little exercise, and I have done it in constructive rest, which I can show you as well when I get to those. But inhibition, so finding power in the pause, I've found a lot that even before I start singing, even just what I'm thinking about singing, my neck tightens. I would be thinking about like going through stuff, memorizing, be like, okay. Not even singing, and my neck is tight. And so that was informative to me. And I said, isn't that interesting? Or I said, you're so stupid. No, I said, isn't that interesting? Totally. So you can imagine yourself getting into different situations. If you want to imagine yourself, if you're someone who deals with performance anxiety, imagining yourself in the space of performing and just putting yourself in that place. I mean, I can literally do it and feel my heart get beating faster already, like 2 seconds. And notice, what does your body do? And then what does your body not need to do? So not battening it down, but rather catch and release. So this little exercise has taught me a lot. And then I couldn't do this without talking about the fairy wish, which is credited to my mentor, but she talks about singing as singing from a place of a fairy wish, which is that fairies are not, they're not like mad about it. They know it's going to happen because they're magical. It's insistence and trust and persistence, but without extramuscular effort, there's a natural sense of up, because fairies are tiny and light. And so we talk about like, if you want something and you're singing or in life, think of it as a fairy wish and trust that your body can make it happen.
Does that speak to the body gently?
Speak to the body gently and it will do anything. Yes. Thank you, Faith. It's a beautiful quote. Okay, this one I want you all to try. So position and mechanical advantage. So this is formerly known as monkey. We don't usually call it that anymore. So I have students do this all the time, especially when they're singing. So the first step is to find your hip joint. So I often still will move my legs around to find my hip joint. Okay, so once you found your hip joint, allow your hands to stay there. You want your feet about shoulder width apart. You want to find your heels, make sure your pelvis is under your palate. You want to acknowledge the S curve of your spine. And then so the first thing that happens is that your knees go forward from the back, which is always a weird thing to say, but the knees, when we move them, we want to imagine that movement coming from the back. And then the other fun thing to try is, can your legs go forward without your pelvis going with them? So can I just move my legs and allow my pelvis to hang out, right? So if I'm in a position of mechanical advantage, I'm letting my knees go forward without my pelvis following. And so I've got a little bit of quad action, and then from the hip joint, I'm going to just gently tilt forward. And when I do this, I want to make sure that I'm not compromising my spine position. So I'm not curving the spine unnaturally. I'm just, maybe a side view would be better. So the knees going forward, and then from the hip joint, but without compromising the spine. Okay, and then the arms hang. And then in this position, and the singer is looking at the floor, or you're kind of looking at the floor, the head neck joint, you can check in with your head neck joint by moving around your fingertips right under your earlobes. You should feel some engagement in your quads, but your abs can be really beautifully hangy for the inhale. And then it's a really lovely position to sing from, imagining that the torso, so I think just helping singers find the whole torso when they're singing. So any position that encourages that. So position of mechanical advantage, super, super happy, helpful.
I stopped your slides just so we could see you bigger. So if you want to go back to that, you'll just need to reshare. So.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, let me. Okay. Still in the same spot, right? Okay, so stand and sit. So here's another fun thing to try. So if you have a chair, these chairs are not super great with it. So if you just stand and sit a few times, do it on your own. Stand up, sit down. How many times a day do we do this? I like to think about it when I'm in church, when you're standing up and down for things. Okay, so a couple things to think about when you're doing it. Your head leads, so you're bending at the hip joint, leaving the spine curve alone. It's a weight transfer, and you're not going against gravity. Gravity is our friend, it keeps us grounded, but you're rather intercepting gravity. So you could remember where your hip joint is. You can remember where your head neck joint is. Many people compress before they stand up versus allowing the head to stay fluid and the spine to remain uncompromised when you're standing up and down. So try that a few times, if you will. Tell me if you discover anything. While you're trying that, here's a little AT mantra. Let the neck be free, to let the head go forward and up, to let the back lengthen and widen, to let the knees go forward and away, to lean the trunk forward from the hip joints, and then it goes on, depending on what motion you're doing. So let's see, we're getting towards the end of our time here. Constructive rest is something that I do every night. It's a little treat yourself moment, and I'll show you here on the table because I'm a princess and I don't want to lay on the floor. Probably don't need a book. So we are semi-supine, which is legs up, and then in this position, I'll take myself through a series of movements. Can you all still hear me okay? So I'm laying on a table.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll take myself through a series of movements, first just kind of going top to bottom. Many people like to put something under their heads with this. Sometimes you can put a book under. Again, I'm a princess, I put a towel under mine. But you don't generally want to have your head compromised. So I am gonna get over my princess ways and put a book there. So I'll notice what wants to be in touch with the floor or the table. Sometimes I'll think about singing in this position and see what changes. That was what I was talking about earlier with noticing that even when I'm not singing, I am compressing in my head neck joint. I noticed that from this position. I will have singers sing in this position sometimes. This is also a position that Alexander technique practitioners do table work, where they'll guide someone through a series of motions with hands-on in this position. So you can notice your hip joints and move your legs from them using the backs of the knees to guide, and noting what may be efforting here that doesn't need to. One thing I've noticed in this position was sometimes I was tightening my jaw when I was moving my legs. Crazy, but that happens. So it's just a really nice, how I feel afterwards is that I've allowed my spine to breathe, that maybe during the day I've compressed or I've been anxious or, you know, whatever else compressed my spine, and this kind of gets me back to that neutral elongated position. It's also a nice thing to think about the cape and the arm movement. Sometimes I'll put a hand on my shoulder and make sure that this is not the initiation of my movement. I'll notice what wants to move when I'm breathing. I'll notice the sternocleidomastoid and the sternum and this area, and allowing it to be released when I inhale. Sometimes singers will shove the breath so far down that they forget that the lungs are up here. So yeah, so those are a few, and there's lots of great resources for constructive rest, lots of like guided constructive rest, and lots of great resources for those as well. Whew. All right.
I did the same thing again, just so we could see you bigger.
Okay, perfect. I say perfect and I'm like, how do I? Okay. Oh, now that's like a. It's frozen again. All right. Well, I had a few more slides on there and I don't remember what they said. They were really cool. So do you all have questions? We're getting near our end here. Do you all have any questions for me or any thoughts or discoveries along the way? And I'll see if I can get this unfrozen to access the rest of my little ideas here.
I'll get us started. The quiet knowing, the sort of more subdued, like body-mind connection, paying attention, this energy is not what my students walk in the door with. They usually come in a high state of energy, perhaps some anxiety, perhaps some stress. Can you talk about how you help students transition into this more quiet, mindful energy so that they can reconnect with their bodies?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I think probably something that we're all working on. I think the first thing that comes to mind is how I'm using myself and how I am not allowing or not absorbing their energy necessarily. I'm receiving their energy, but I'm not absorbing it and taking it in and letting it change how I am in my body. So I hope that in my teaching, how I am in my body can translate to my student and how they want to be in their bodies. I mean, that little conversation time at the beginning of just kind of letting them get a couple things off their chest that, you know, may or may not turn into the whole lesson, but hopefully not. But that, you know, just having that rapport with them and creating an environment where they're free to make weird noises and they're free to kind of get things off their chest, and they know that I care about them as a human and, you know, want them to release that so we can start singing. I've done constructive rest with people. I've had students come in and like be like, I just need to lay on the floor for a minute. This thing is also really nice and calming. I didn't pull this out, but this is just like a little stool thing from Target, but I'll have people like sit on it when they warm up. Even before they start singing, we'll just do some like sighing and releasing of some of the day's stress. And I always want to stress too with my students that Alexander technique is, I don't want them, you all have heard me say this, but I don't want them to be relaxed necessarily. I want to channel all that wonderful energy that they have and all the excitement and the, you know, we think of it as a higher plane of vibration when I'm singing versus when I'm speaking. So I have this, you know, we want that energy there. We just have to figure out how to release it in a way that is efficient, right? So yeah, I don't know if that was all the answers to your question. What's that?
Uninhibited release.
Uninhibited, yes. Uninhibited release. Yes.
Wonderful.
So
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I was going to say, jumping off of Elizabeth's question, sometimes I have students that come in with very low energy. And so, what is one way we can kind of use the Alexander, because I understand kind of channeling the energy in order to make it work for us, but what's one way that we can kind of use it to help create the energy in order to channel it?
Yes, also a beautiful question. I think it goes back to, we can't ever create energy. And I think there's also just that, I think there's that acceptance sometimes that if the student in front of me is low energy, I can't necessarily give to them my energy, right? I wish I could, but giving them, again, being in my body and me being excited and me being like, oh, I love this song. Oh, this is so fun. And, you know, even in a little mini demonstration or getting them, I don't know. I think sometimes that low energy is sometimes also a form of anxiety, right? I think sometimes students show that differently and just like, I'm just overwhelmed and I can't handle everything that's coming at me, and it just results in this like, so I think, I don't know, I think just people moving around in the space where they are. I think the kinesphere idea might be a helpful one in that case with the low energy students, of just like talking them through being in the room with you, being in the room in the space. Yeah.
There was one time you asked me something I was looking forward to. And I remember being like, oh, just like snuggling with my cat at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's kind of boring. And you were like, no, that's perfect. Think about that and sing.
Yeah. Okay.
And that like brought my energy up, even though it was just like simple.
Yeah. Yeah. So letting the student, yes, that's a beautiful answer to the question too. Letting the student tap into something that they are excited about, even if it's not singing. Even if it's not singing in that moment.
Oh, also, I'll tell a student sometime, I'll be like, what if, like, because you're here because you like singing, so let's just sing this warm up again, but remembering that we like to sing as we sing it.
Yes, remembering that there is joy in singing. And, you know, sometimes we'll school it out of ourselves, but we're here because we love it and we have something to say. We did something in an AT workshop in Boston where people would go to their instruments but they would pick up their instrument with joy instead of picking up their instrument with like, oh, I have to practice, right? So we can remind people of that, the joyful curiosity of it all. Any other questions while we're stuffified? I have a couple other things, if not.
We are at time, but I would love to give a final call if there's any other questions from the folks who are on the call now. And if you want to give one last try to share the slides, I'm sorry for sabotaging that. It was not my intention. We just wanted to see you bigger. But yeah, if there are any other questions, please just go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
I have one quick question in relation to the what was you said was formerly known as the monkey position. I've worked with that in the studio, and I've had students say they feel uncomfortable or singing in that position, or like almost, I don't want to say that it was painful, but it was uncomfortable. Is there like, what would be your response to that of how to?
Yeah, I would work with them in how they're getting into the position. The only big engagement I usually feel is quadricep engagement when I'm in that position. So you would really make sure that they're not compromising their spine position when they get into it, and that the knees are coming forward from the backs. You also could have them get into it by holding on or like doing a little head neck exercise and making sure that they're not compressing their head neck joint or trying to look up at you when they're singing. But that you really, if you're in the position well, you probably will be looking at the floor and letting the arms hang. But I think probably the most common thing would be compromising the spine position, or the most common thing. Or you could have them get into it from a sitting position. Sometimes that's another way to access it as well, like the elbows on the knees thing when you're sitting and you have your elbows on your knees, and then you could get yourself up from the sitting position and try it from there too. All right, well, let me leave you with a couple thoughts here. Cooperate with the body's amazing design. Don't separate your performer self from your self. So AT is a way to help people be themselves no matter what they're doing. And then good alignment is not a climate, or is a climate, it's not a place. So we want that constant movement found when we're in balance, and when our voices are in balance and our bodies are in balance, then we're constantly moving and we can't hang on to it. So that's my parting thoughts.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Hedlund. This was really fantastic and so helpful. And I just want to say a big thank you to folks who came out on this Sunday evening to share their time with us. And to remind you that our next meeting will be in April. April 27th. Please keep an eye on your email for more information about that. But let's give Dr. Hedlund one big round of applause for folks whose video are on. I learned so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. So thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.